We have our guest houses here, and we live on guests who like it here and who come back and who recommend us to our friends. Normally we have 1/3, 1/4 of our guests from abroad, especially during the summer. Germans, Swiss people, Belgians, and so on come. But the majority always was Romanian guests, mostly from the big cities, Bucharest, Cluj, Timișoara. Then in 2020 came the lockdown due to Corona pandemic. And that was a great challenge and danger to all who were active in tourism, because people couldn't travel. They had to stay in their homes. That was for 3 months. And we survived without guests because we had a good year before. So we had some reserves on which we could rely. We kept all our employees. We didn't set anybody off. And we tried to find jobs for them, although there were no guests. Then later in the summer of 2020, tourism started slowly again. Although the foreign guests couldn't come, many Romanians who would have spent their vacation abroad also had to stay in their country. So they rediscovered or discovered us. So we never really had any slump in the business. The numbers of guests were more or less the same, although the composition differed. No more foreigners, only Romanians. But since we had relied on the Romanian market primarily before, that was no big change and no big challenge. So we didn't have to try to find new clients, new guests, which we hadn't reached before. Our business survived quite well by doing all the weddings which had been arranged for 2020, plus the ones which we had agreed upon to do in 2021. So 2021 perhaps had been our busiest year so far. And this has continued through this year. This year is very busy, both with guests who come, only few, but still foreign guests also come, and many weddings over the weekends. We had established this tradition of artists' residencies in Cincșor in 2017. So 17, 18, 19, we had 3 residencies. That means we closed down our guest houses for a week for general, normal guests, and only receive 10, 12, 15 artists. They work here. We provide them with room and board, and as far as possible with working material, canvas, paint, and so on. They come here and they produce something, and the works they produce, they normally leave to us. In that way, we accumulate a certain number of pieces of art which belong to us and which we can use for expositions here in this church. And that's the basic intent. No, that's one of the intentions of these residencies, to gain pictures, pieces of art, which we can use to turn this church into an art church. This still is the local Saxon Lutheran Evangelic Church for Kleinschenk, Cincșor. But after the big exodus of the Saxons in 1990, no more Saxons remained. Today, our community is made up of 8 people altogether. So in the very near future, our community will have shrunk to such a small size that it will not merit a regular Sunday service. That means the church ceases to be a church as a place of worship. We are up here at our mechanical clock in the Cincșor Kleinschenk bell tower, and although it had been repaired 3 years ago, it doesn't really work. The repair was done in 2019. After a long search, we found a clockmaker in Dresden in Germany. He came here in the summer of 2019, worked on the clock for 2 weeks, repaired it. He disassembled everything, checked it, oiled it, made it run well again. When he left, everything worked fine. Not only the main mechanism that you see here, but also these other two mechanisms which are responsible for the chiming of the hours. For 4 months after he left, the clock ran as we expected. I or somebody else came up here every morning to rewind the clock so that it would tell us the time and chime the hours. But after 4 months, as I said, the clock became slow, and we decided not to rewind it every morning because resetting it to the exact time is a rather complicated process. It takes some time, it needs some knowledge. Meanwhile, that man unfortunately has died, so we're looking for a new expert to do the final repair. So here we are up on the bell tower of the fortified church, which on the one hand gives you a perfect overview over all the village, but which also represents some of the history of the village. We have 3 bells here, as you can see. A big one, which is the newest one. The date there says 1937. Then a middle one, which is from 1644. And the smallest one, which is the oldest one, although it looks most modest, which is from 1489. The reason the biggest bell is new is the First World War, when in Germany and Austria-Hungary, church bells were collected to be turned into ammunition. And so the big bell, which had been here before, also had to be given to the state, and a new bell only was cast and brought up here in 1937. We want to keep the church open and attractive, not only for tourist visitors, which it had been and still is, but also to make it attractive as a point for art, an art church, so to speak. And for that we organize these residencies. But on the other hand, it's also a great place for artists to come here together. Most of the artists who come here are new to the place, are new to Transylvania. The foreign artists, we also have a mix of foreigners and Romanian artists. Normally it's about half-half. They come here for the first time. They have to learn about the place, about its past, its character, and they also have to come to get along with each other. Most of the artists haven't known each other before, so this is a challenge in many respects. A group of individualists, which artists normally are, have to come together here to form more or less a community. And still they have to go back to their craft and produce something. And in the end, we always do a vernissage where the artists present their pictures to the public, and we say, now this is our new exposition for the coming months or the coming year. Normally we combine that with other cultural events, with performances, with readings of poets, with music. And yesterday we had readings of 2 German writers, plus a concert of the Romanian group Byron. Both here in the church, and that was a great event. The church was packed with people, and people who saw that churches are not only for devotion and for prayer, but also for an active cultural life.